Lofi, hello. Bubbles, bubbles, only 25 cents. Bubbles. You get one per stream, they're only 25 cents. Hi, Lofi. Fancy meeting you here. How are you? Oh, I forgot to load up the. I have to find my music. I gotta find my music for this. Where is it? Where is it? What did I do with it? I swear I saved it somewhere. Where is it? I can't find it. Oh my god. I can't find it. I can't find it. I lost it. Oh no, I've lost it. I've gotta find a new one now. Jurassic Park. There we go. Excuse me. Oops. Alright, I've got it all ready to go. Llamas, hiyo, how are you? What's going on? Hold on, Twitch is doing a thing. There we go. There we go. I witnessed police arresting someone at my apartment complex. Oh. Oh. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen, like, directly police arresting someone. I've seen we've had the SWAT show up in my neighborhood before. And I think there's been like another neighborhood lockdown. Maybe twice. Once or twice. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, and then there was, trigger warning, there was a guy who, alright, hold on. There we go. Is that better? Or maybe this? Is that good? Okay. But yeah, we've had like a neighborhood lockdown before, and the SWAT one time to like that was crazy. And then there was one time where, trigger warning, somebody who worked at another store, a part of the chain that I used to work at, their vehicle was parked in the back of the parking lot for a few days, I think. So the police had to come and investigate it, and it turned out that this person, you know, in his car in the back of the parking lot. So that was a day. Yeah, that. It was a day. Yeah. He didn't work at my location. I think he just chose to, I don't know, he just chose to do it in that one. So, after I'm not laughing. After that incident, it was actually required for, I don't remember if corporate came or if it was just like instructions from corporate to have leadership pull all of us aside one by one to like check up on us and make sure that we were feeling okay and that there are resources available if we're not. I swear if you heard anything that sounded like a laugh, it was not a laugh. My voice is just shaky because it's a very sensitive subject. I think my eyes actually teared up quite a bit. Okay. I laugh when I'm nervous or something like that. Me too. I laugh too when I'm nervous, but not in like this case. In this case, it was just like a I don't even know what to call it. Fauna, hello. How are you? Super duper EP. Oh yeah, I feel that. I've actually been up since 6:30 this morning. My cat woke me up at 6:30 to feed her. And then when I tried to go back to sleep, she wouldn't let me. She kept digging on my blanket to wake me up. So I've been up since 6:30. I haven't taken a nap. I've just been busy all day doing things. Having a conversation with my mom. But yeah, actually, you know, I found it's quite common, I think, for people to like nervous laugh. I feel like it's a very common occurrence to laugh in an uncomfortable situation. Oh, you know, actually, I've tried something new today when I made my coffee, which I have right now because I feel like coffee is a wonderful thing for me right now, being tired, and we're about to read some Jurassic Park. But I've got coffee and like a cinnamon roll type thing. It looks like what is it? It looks like a honey bun, but it's like cinnamon roll flavored. Right. So I've got that and a coffee. And what I did with my coffee this time is, so I did half water, heated that up, right? Half water. Put in my coffee mix, cause you know we're broke bitches, so we use instant coffee. And then I did half coconut water, and then like a little splash of milk, and it's actually pretty good. It's pretty good. I like it. I like it. Okay. I got something in my throat. I've been trying to think of ways that I could make the stream a little more interactive, and I was wondering if you guys had any input. Because I have my channel redeems, and those are pretty interactive, I think. But I was wondering if there was more that I could do that you guys would enjoy. I actually saw this extension that was like you could play bingo. I saw this bingo extension that I thought was interesting. But I don't know how many of you guys actually like to play bingo. You love bingo? Me too. Oh my gosh, I love group bingo events. I love them. So the bingo extension that I was looking at, you could play classic bingo, and then they have like a couple different ways that you can do it, whether it's triggered by stream events like someone following, or if they're automatically called out, or manually called out. And then they have bingo where instead of numbers, it would be bingo based on stream events. So instead of numbers, it would be like, oh, somebody joined, somebody threw bits, or somebody followed, somebody subbed, oh, there was a gifted sub, things like that. I am curious about it, but if that's something that you guys would like, I'll definitely install it and we can play that sometime, especially since my streams tend to be pretty low-key, not too exciting, I don't think. So it'd be pretty easy to keep up with it. Except for if I do, when I do Little Nightmares 2, because Juner has decided to gift me with Little Nightmares 2, so I will be playing that. Probably after we finish reading Jurassic Park is when we'll be playing Little Nightmares 2, maybe. It depends, because I feel like I've been leaving most of my gaming days for collabs. I don't have any collabs coming up next week. Not at the moment, however. I don't know what games that I would want to play. Except maybe Stardew Valley. I could do more. I could get back into Stardew Valley, actually. Oh, what else? I love farming simulator games. I do, and also Sims. What else? Oh, on August 5th, I have a collab lined up to play a game with a bunch of people. The maximum is like 15 people who can be in the lobby. So it'll be a really fun, chaotic time. I'm sure everyone will enjoy that. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what game we're gonna play yet. I don't want to get my hands dirty, so I'm eating this donut thing with a fork and knife. you know, like a true civilized human being, you know? Have you ever seen someone eat a pizza with a fork and knife before? Here in the US, I've only ever eaten pizza with my, you know, hands. It's like a finger food, right? Even though it's like greasy. But if you go to the Philippines, it's just fork and knife. Fork and knife. So I'm kind of like, that's what I do most of the time, unless I just feel like cavemanning it. It's like, oh, I don't feel like grabbing a fork and knife right now, or putting it on a plate and just grab it and hoof it, right? But any other time, fork and knife. Every time my boyfriend saw me eating a pizza with fork and knife, he'd look at me weird, like, what the fuck are you doing? I can't be the only one here who does that, right? You open this up. There we go. Okay. I'm always amazed at the different ways that my cat falls asleep. Most of the time she's laying on her back, but it's like the way her little paws curl up is so cute. Especially when she has them like sticking up into the air. She had it one way just a bit ago, and it was really cute. I wanted to take a picture of it, but while I had my camera out on my phone and was pointing it at her, she was still asleep, but she suddenly repositioned herself. She was still on her back, but it wasn't in the same way that I wanted to take the picture of her. I was like, why did you do that? Why did you do that? Why did you move? No one told you to move. She really looks like the Maneki Neko, the little good luck cat. She really does. Oh, I should get like a little Maneki Neko for my desk. Or maybe one to put on the shelf in my room here. I think that would be cute. Maybe I can get one that looks like her. Alright, where did we leave off last in Jurassic Park? I don't remember. Let's see. First, let's get rid of this cute bubbly music for a second, so we can swap over to our Jurassic ambiance. Let's see, which one do I want to go with? Let's go with this one. Come on. Turn that down a bit. I think that should be pretty good. I should get like a Jurassic Park background. That would have been a good idea. Oh, actually, you know what? Oh, idea. I would love to have like a piece of art where it's me like exploring a dinosaur land, like exploring Jurassic Park or something. Lost in Jurassic Park. I would love a piece of art with me in that. When I get paid, I should commission that. All right. So where we last left off, full cinnamon. Hi, Koshwa. Bubbles, Bubbles, only 25 cents. You get one per stream. Only 25 cents. How are you doing today? You're just in time. We're about to start reading Jurassic Park. I was just going over where we last left off. We just finished the initial tour of the park. Well, that's because we're in the ASMR section today. Yes. We just finished the initial tour of the park and the facilities. And they just started with the actual park tour where they get to see dinosaurs. So where we are now is Big Rex. So I'm assuming with the name of this chapter, we're about to be entering the Tyrannosaur paddock portion of the tour. So, I hope everyone's got a water, a coffee, a tea, whatever it is that'll help you sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. The mighty Tyrannosaurus arose late in dinosaur history. Dinosaurs ruled the earth for 120 million years, but there were tyrannosaurs for only the last 15 million years of that period. The land cruisers had stopped at the rise of the hill. They overlooked a forested area sloping down to the edge of the lagoon. The sun was falling to the west, sinking into a misty horizon. The whole landscape of Jurassic Park was bathed in soft light, with lengthening shadows. The surface of the lagoon rippled in pink crescents. Farther south, they saw the graceful necks of the Apatosaurus standing at the water's edge, their bodies mirrored in the moving surface. It was quiet, except for the soft drone of cicadas. As they stared out at the landscape, it was possible to believe that they had really been transported millions of years back in time to a vanished world. You just watched a clip of me being Pecco. I love Pecco. It was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Um, it, it, Laurel. Laurel. I'm hoping that's right. I'm really bad at reading the names. Hello, welcome in. We're just beginning to start the chapter. Or we just started the chapter, actually. We're literally on the first page of this chapter. How are you doing? I hope you like Jurassic Park. You can call me Laurel, that would be easier to say. Alright, Laurel it is. It works, doesn't it? They heard Ed Regis say over the intercom. I like to come here sometimes in the evening and just sit. Grant was unimpressed. Where's the T-Rex? Good question. You often see the little one down in the lagoon. The lagoon's stocked, so we have fish in there. The little one has learned to catch the fish. Interesting how he does it. He doesn't use his hands, but he ducks his whole head under the water like a bird. The little one. The little T-Rex. He's a juvenile, 2 years old, and about a third grown now. Stands 8 feet high, weighs a ton and a half. The other one's a full-grown tyrannosaur, but I don't see him at the moment. You read the book as a teen. I never had the opportunity to read the books till now. So I have this one, and then when we finish this, we'll take a bit of a break and read The Lost World. I've seen all of the movies, except the new one that just came out. I want to watch that. I know that they're not canon, and I know that the 90s movies were drastically changed from the literature. So I was really curious what the actual books were like, and that's why we're reading them now. I also watch a lot of Jurassic Park iceberg videos. I remember the book is a lot more gory and horror-oriented. That's exactly right. We realized that from the prologue. The prologue was quite, I don't want to say gruesome, but it definitely gave the hints that it was going to be quite an experience to be had. Yeah, the baby's face eaten up by the compies is, oof. And then the hospital nurse trying to cover it up. I think there was a scene though with like an actual raptor in one of the in one of the baby's rooms. I'm pretty sure I remember reading that. I'm pretty sure. Maybe he's down hunting the apatosaurs, Grant said. Regis laughed, his voice tinny over the radio. He would if he could, believe me. Sometimes he stands by the lagoon and stares at those animals and wiggles those little forearms of his in frustration. But the T-Rex territory is completely enclosed with trenches and fences. They're disguised from view, but believe me, he can't go anywhere. Then where is he? Hiding, Regis said. He's a little shy. Shy, Malcolm said. Tyrannosaurus Rex is shy. Well, he conceals himself as a general rule. You almost never see him out in the open, especially in daylight. Why is that? We think it's because he has sensitive skin and sunburns easily. Malcolm began to laugh. Grant sighed. You're destroying a lot of illusions. I don't think you'll be disappointed, Regis said. Just wait. They heard a soft bleeding sound. In the center of a field, a small cage rose up into view, lifted on hydraulics from underground. The cage bars slid down, and the goat remained tethered in the center of the field, bleeding plaintively. Any minute now, Regis said again. They stared out the window. Look at them, Hammond said, watching the control room monitor. Leaning out of the window, so eager. They can't wait to see it. They've come for the danger. That's what I'm afraid of, Muldoon said. He twirled the keys on his finger and watched the Land Cruiser tensely. This was the first time that visitors had toured Jurassic Park, and Muldoon shared Arnold's apprehension. Robert Muldoon was a big man, 50 years old, with a steel gray mustache and deep blue eyes. Raised in Kenya, he had spent most of his life as a guide for African big game hunters, as had his father before him. But since 1980, he had worked principally for conservation groups and zoo designers as a wildlife consultant. He had become well known. An article in the London Sunday Times had said, "What Robert Trent Jones is to golf courses, Robert Muldoon is to zoos, a designer of unsurpassed knowledge and skill." In 1986, he had done some work for their San Francisco company that was building a private wildlife park on an island in North America. Muldoon had laid out the boundaries for different animals, defining space and habitat requirements for lions, elephants, zebras, and hippos, identifying which animals could be kept together and which had to be separated. At the time, it had been a fairly routine job. He had been more interested in an Indian park called Tiger World in southern Kashmir. Then, a year ago, he was offered a job as game warden of Jurassic Park. It coincided with a desire to leave Africa. The salary was excellent. Muldoon had taken it on for a year. He was astonished to discover the park was really a collection of genetically engineered prehistoric animals. It was, of course, interesting work, but during his years in Africa, Muldoon had developed an unblinking view of animals, an unromantic view that frequently set him at odds with the Jurassic Park management in California, particularly the little Martinet standing beside him in the control room. In Muldoon's opinion, cloning dinosaurs in a laboratory was one thing. Maintaining them in the wild was quite another. It was Muldoon's view that some dinosaurs were too dangerous to be kept in a park setting. In part, the dinosaur existed. The danger existed because they still knew so little about the animals. For example, nobody even suspected the Dilophosaurs were poisonous until they were observed hunting indigenous rats on the island, biting the rodents and then stepping back to wait for them to die. And even then, nobody suspected the Dilophosaurs could spit until one of the handlers was almost blinded by spitting venom. After that, Hammond had agreed to study Dilophosaur venom, which was found to contain 7 different toxic enzymes. It was also discovered that the Dilophosaurs could spit a distance of 50 feet. Since this raised the possibility that a guest in a car might be blinded, management decided to remove the poison sacs. The vets had tried twice, on 2 different animals, without success. No one knew where the poison was being secreted, and no one would ever know until an autopsy was performed on a Dilophosaur, and management would not allow one to be killed. Muldoon worried even more about the velociraptors. They were instinctive hunters, and they never passed up prey. They killed even when they weren't hungry. They killed for the pleasure of killing. They were swift, strong runners, and astonishing jumpers. They had lethal claws on all 4 limbs. One swipe of a forearm would disembowel a man, spilling his guts out. And they had powerful tearing jaws that ripped flesh instead of biting. They were far more intelligent than the other dinosaurs, and they seemed to be natural cage breakers. Every zoo expert knew that certain animals were especially likely to get free of their cages. Some, like monkeys and elephants, could undo cage doors. Others, like wild pigs, were unusually intelligent. They could lift gate fasteners with their snouts. But who would suspect that the giant armadillo was a notorious cage breaker? Or the moose? Yet a moose was almost as skillful with its snout as an elephant with its trunk. Moose were always getting free. They had a talent for it. And so did velociraptors. Raptors were at least as intelligent as chimpanzees. And like chimpanzees, they had agile hands that enabled them to open doors and manipulate objects. They could escape with ease. And when, as Muldoon had feared, one of them finally escaped, it killed 2 construction workers and maimed a 3rd before being recaptured. After that episode, the visitor lodge had been reworked with heavy barred gates, a high perimeter fence, and tempered glass windows. And the raptor holding pen was rebuilt with electronic sensors to warn of another impending escape. Muldoon wanted guns as well, and he wanted shoulder-mounted law missile launchers. Hunters knew how difficult it was to bring down a 4-ton African elephant, and some of the dinosaurs weighed 10 times as much. Management was horrified, insisting there be no guns anywhere on the island. When Muldoon threatened to quit, and to take his story to the press, a compromise was reached. In the end, 2 specially built laser-guided missile launchers were kept in a locked room in the basement. Only Muldoon had keys to the room. Those were the keys Muldoon was twirling now. "I'm going downstairs," he said. Arnold, watching the control screens, nodded. The 2 land cruisers sat at the top of the hill, waiting for the T-Rex to appear. "Hey," Dennis Nedry called from the far console. "As long as you're up, get me a Coke, okay?" Grant waited in the car, watching quietly. The bleating of the goat came louder, more insistent. The goat tugged frantically at its tether, racing back and forth. Over the radio, Grant heard Lex say in alarm, "What's going to happen to the goat? Is she going to eat the goat?" "I think so," someone said to her, and then Ellie turned the radio down. Then they smelt the odor, a garbage stench of putrefaction and decay that drifted up the hillside towards them. Grant whispered, "He's here." "She," Malcolm said. The goat was tethered in the center of the field, 30 yards from the nearest trees. The dinosaur must be somewhere among the trees, but for a moment, Grant could see nothing at all. Then he realized he was looking too low. The animal's head stood 20 feet above the ground, half concealed among the upper branches of the palm trees. Malcolm whispered, "Oh my God, she's as large as a bloody building." Grant stared at the enormous square head, 5 feet long, mottled reddish brown, with huge jaws and fangs. The Tyrannosaur's jaws worked once, opening and closing, but the huge animal did not emerge from hiding. Malcolm whispered, "How long will it wait?" "Maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Maybe." The Tyrannosaur sprang slightly forward, fully revealing her enormous body. In 4 bounding steps, she covered the distance to the goat, bent down, and bit it through the neck. The bleeding stopped. There was silence. Poised over her kill, the Tyrannosaur became suddenly hesitant. Her massive head turned on the muscular neck, looking in all directions. She stared fixedly at the Land Cruiser high above the hill. Malcolm whispered, "Can she see us?" "Oh yes," Regis said on the intercom. "Let's see if she's going to eat in front of us, or if she's going to drag the prey away." The Tyrannosaur bent down and sniffed the carcass of the goat. A bird chirped. Her head snapped up, alert, watchful. She looked back and forth, scanning in small, jerking shifts. "Like a bird," Ellie said. Still, the Tyrannosaur hesitated. "What is she afraid of?" Malcolm whispered. "Probably another Tyrannosaur," Grant whispered. Big carnivores like lions and tigers often became cautious after a kill, behaving as if suddenly exposed. 19th century zoologists imagined the animals felt guilty for what they had done, but contemporary scientists documented the effort behind a kill, hours of patient stalking before the final lunge, as well as the frequency of failure. The idea of nature, red in tooth and claw, was wrong. Most of the prey got away, but when a carnivore finally brought down an animal, it was watchful for another predator who might attack and steal its prize. Thus, the Tyrannosaur was probably fearful of another Tyrannosaur. The huge animal bent over the goat again. One great hind limb held the carcass in place as the jaws began to tear the flesh. "She's going to stay," Regis whispered. "Excellent." The Tyrannosaur lifted her head again, ragged chunks of bleeding flesh from her jaws. She stared at the Land Cruiser. She began to chew. They heard the sickening crunch of bars. "Ew," Lex said over the intercom. "That's disgusting." And then, as if caution had finally gotten the better of her, the Tyrannosaur lifted the remains of the goat in her jaws and carried them silently back among the trees. "Ladies and gentlemen, Tyrannosaurus Rex," the tape said. The Land Cruisers started up and moved silently off through the foliage. Malcolm sat back in his seat. Fantastic, he said. Gennaro wiped his forehead. He looked pale. That's the end of that chapter. So many differences. So many differences. They didn't see it in the film until later on when it made its escape. So different from the movie. Just take a bite of my donut. Like, most movies are definitely not one-to-one with the literature that they follow after. However, I wasn't expecting it to be quite as different as it is. Like, I understand the, family-friendlying it a bit. So it's not as dark, not as horrorsome, and children can watch it. But there are so many there's character deletions, changes of character appearances, which, here and there is quite common. But I feel like every single character, except maybe Ellie, is very different from how they're portrayed in the film. Actually, what's his name? The main guy, Injun. Oh, why can't I remember his name? The grandpa dude. We literally just read his name. Mr. Hammond. He also seems similar to his movie portrayal so far, at least in appearance. But everyone else is so different. Grant looks different. Grant loves children in the book. Why did they make him hate children in the movie? Gennaro should be like a gym bro lawyer. I would have loved him to be a gym bro lawyer in the movie. In the movie, Dr. Malcolm is kind of a rock star. But in the book, he's kind of like, I guess, like balding rock star. Well, yeah, I get that he's meaner and greedier in the book, but I don't think he's really portrayed that up to this point quite yet. I get the greediness, and I have seen quite a bit of his corporate speak in regards to dealing with Dr. Wu. I think his name is Wu, right? The head scientist definitely gave him a lot of corporate speak. So I've gotten the greed, the corporate greed. I haven't gotten quite much of the meanness yet, but definitely was more of a cuddly grandpa type in the movie. So I love every chapter I've stopped and like kind of pointed out the differences and just been like, oh. Honestly, I would love to see like a remake of the 90s movies to be more accurate to the books. I would love to see that. Or even like a TV series based on like book accuracy. I'd watch it for sure. I love Jurassic Park. I think the only thing Jurassic Park related that I haven't watched is Camp Cretaceous. I haven't watched any of those. Alright, let's continue with the next chapter. Wait, before we do that, I need to take a picture of my cat. You're currently watching Camp Cretaceous. Ah. I'm gonna need to get into that myself. Alright, I've got her. Every time I see her sleeping in a cute position, I have to get a picture. I just have to. Babos, babos, babos. Only 25 cents. Only 25 cents. You get one per stream. Text. Haha, you missed. You missed. You can't slap me. You can't slap me. Ha ha ha. Get wrecked. Mwahahaha. Koshua, thank you for the headpads. There we go. Alright. Continuation. Henry Wu came into the control room to find everyone sitting in the dark, listening to the voices on the radio. Jesus, if an animal like that gets out, Gennaro was saying, his voice tinny on the speaker, there'd be no stopping it. No stopping it. No. Huge, with no natural enemies. My God, think of it. In the control room, Hammond says, "Damn those people. They're so negative." Wu said, "They're still going on about an animal escaping. I don't understand. They must have seen by now that we have everything under control. We've engineered the animals and engineered the resort." He shrugged. It was Wu's deepest perception that the park was fundamentally sound, as he believed his paleo DNA was fundamentally sound. Whatever problems might arise in the DNA were essentially point problems in the code, causing a specific problem in the phenotype, an enzyme that didn't switch on, or a protein that didn't fold. Whatever the difficulty, it was always solved with a relatively minor adjustment in the next version. Similarly, He knew that Jurassic Park's problems were not fundamental problems. They were not control problems. Nothing as basic or as serious as the possibility of an animal escaping. We found it offensive to think that anyone would believe him capable of contributing to a system where such a thing could happen. It's that Malcolm, Hammond said darkly. He's behind it all. He was against us from the start, you know. He got his theory that complex systems can't be controlled, and nature can't be imitated. I don't know what his problem is. Hell, we're just making a zoo here. World's full of them, and they all work fine. But he's going to prove his theory or die trying. I just hope he doesn't panic Gennaro into trying to shut the park down. Wu said, "Can he do that?" "No," Hammond said. "But he can try. He can try and frighten the Japanese investors and get them to withdraw funds. Or he can make a stink with the San Jose government. He can make trouble." Arnold stubbed out his cigarette. "Let's wait and see what happens," he said. "We believe in the park. Let's see how it plays out." I think the issue here, really, is that they have a very staunch overconfidence in the science. Right. They have a very staunch overconfidence in the science of what they're doing. But they haven't been long enough in the practice of it, in the observation, you know, like studying the animal routine and such, and really testing the facilities. They're in such a rush to produce outcomes. Do you want out? Hold on, I've got to let the cat out of the room. She didn't want out. She led me to... I opened the door for her, she went out, came back in. She just wants pets. Isn't that right, baby? Isn't that right? She just wants cuddles. Yes. She just wants her little cuddles. I don't know if you can hear her purr every now and then. She's got a little motor on her. Yes. Oh. I think this is the longest she's stayed in my lap for a while. Yeah, it's a stinky baby. Maybe you had enough. Maybe you had enough. No. I think one day, when I'm able, I need to find, the stand for it. Eventually I'll set up like a little cat cam that'll be on her bed. You don't want to lay in there, baby. You're gonna get stepped on or something. You don't want to lay down right there. No. Oh, the baby. Yes. You're the little baby. Yes, you are. You're my little baby. Yeah. Okay. Alright, let's continue. Let's continue. Muldoon got off of the elevator, nodded to the ground floor guard, and went downstairs to the basement. He flicked on the lights. The basement was filled with 24 Land Cruisers, arranged in neat rows. These were the electric cars that would eventually form an endless loop, touring the park, returning to the visitor center. In the corner was a Jeep with a red stripe, one of 2 gasoline-powered vehicles. Harding, the vet, had taken the other that morning, which could go anywhere in the park, even among the animals. The Jeeps were painted with a diagonal red stripe because for some reason it discouraged the Triceratops from charging the car. Russian? No. Kitty, hello, welcome in. No. Muldoon moved past the Jeep, toward the back. The steel door to the armaments room was unmarked. He unlocked it with his key and swung the heavy door wide. Gun racks lined the interior. He pulled out a Randler shoulder launcher and a case of canisters. He tucked 2 gray rockets under his other arm. After locking the door behind him, he put the gun into the back seat of the Jeep. As he left the garage... What was that? As he left the garage, he heard the distant rumble of thunder. Sad? You're sad that I'm not Russian? Why sad? Looks like rain, Ed Regis said, glancing up at the sky. The Land Cruisers had stopped again, near the sauropod swamp. A large herd of apatosaurs was grazing at the edge of the lagoon, eating the leaves of the upper branches of the palm trees. In the same area were several duck-billed hadrosaurs, which in comparison looked much smaller. Of course, Tim knew the hadrosaurs weren't really small. It was only that of the apatosaurs were so much larger. Their tiny heads reached 50 feet into the air, extending out on their long necks. The big animals you see are commonly called brontosaurs, the recording said. But they are actually called apatosaurus. They weigh more than 30 tons. That means a single animal is as big as a whole herd of modern elephants. And you may notice that their preferred area alongside the lagoon is not swampy. Despite what the books say, brontosaurs avoid swamps. They prefer dried land. Brontosaurus is the biggest dinosaur. Legs. Had to burp. Brontosaurus is the biggest dinosaur, Lex, Ed Regis said. Tim didn't bother to contradict him. Actually, Brachiosaurus was 3 times as large. And some people thought Ultrasaurus and Seismosaurus were even larger than Brachiosaurus. Oh, she's cracked out. Seismosaurus might have weighed 100 tons. Are you good? Are you okay now? Is that why your bed keeps moving across the room? Alongside the Apatosaurus, the smaller Hadrosaurs stood on their hind legs to get out of the foliage. They moved gracefully for such large creatures. Several infant hadrosaurs scampered around the adults, eating the leaves that dropped from the mouths of the larger animals. The dinosaurs of Jurassic Park don't breed, the recording said. The young animals you see were introduced a few months ago, already hatched. But the adults nurture them anyway. There was the rolling growl of thunder. The sky was darker, lower, and menacing. Yeah, looks like rain all right, Ed Regis said. The car started forward, and Tim looked back at the hadrosaurs. Suddenly, off to one side, he saw a pale yellow animal moving quickly. There were brownish stripes on its back. He recognized it instantly. "Hey," he shouted. "Stop the car!" "What is it?" Ed Regis said. "Quick, stop the car." We move on now to see the last of our great prehistoric animals, the Stegosaurus. The recorded voice said, "What's the matter, Tim?" "I saw one. I saw one in the field out there." "Saw what?" "A raptor in that field." The Stegosaurus are a mid-Jurassic animal, evolving about 170 million years ago. The recording said, "Several of these remarkable herbivores live here at Jurassic Park." "Oh, I don't think so, Tim," Ed Regis said. "Not a raptor." "I did. Stop the car." There was a babble on the intercom as the news was relayed to Grant and Malcolm. Tim says he saw a raptor. "Where?" "Back at the field." "Let's go back and look." "We can't go back," Ed Regis said. "We can only go forward. The cars are programmed." "We can't go back," Grant said. "No," Regis said. "Sorry, you see, it's kind of a ride." "Tim, this is Professor Malcolm," said a voice cutting in on the intercom. "I have just one question for you about this raptor." "How old would you say it was?" "Older than the baby we saw today," Tim said, "and younger than the big adults in the pen. The adults were 6 feet tall. This one was about half that size." "That's fine," Malcolm said. "I only saw it for a second," Tim said. I'm sure it wasn't a raptor, Ed Regis said. It couldn't possibly be a raptor. Must have been one of the office. They're always jumping their fences. We have a hell of a time with them. I know I saw a raptor, Tim said. I'm hungry, Lex said. She was starting to whine. In the control room, Arnold turned to Wu. What do you think the kid saw? I think it must have been an Authie. Arnold nodded. We have trouble tracking Authies because they spend so much time in the trees. The Authis were an exception to the usual minute-to-minute control they maintained over the animals. The computers were constantly losing and picking up the Authis as they went into the trees and then came down again. What burns me, Hammond said, is that we have made this wonderful park. This fantastic park. And our very first visitors are going through it like accountants, just looking for problems. They aren't experiencing the wonder of it at all. That's their problem, Arnold said. We can't make them experience wonder. The intercom clicked, and Arnold heard a voice drawl. John, this is the Ann B over at the dock. We haven't finished offloading, but I'm looking at the storm pattern to the south of us. I'd rather not be tied up here if this chop gets any worse. Arnold turned to the monitor, showing the cargo vessel, which was moored at the dock on the east side of the island. He pressed the radio button. How much left to do, Jim? Just the 3 final equipment containers. I haven't checked the manifest, but I assume you can wait another 2 weeks for it. We're not well berthed here, you know. And we are 100 miles offshore. You requesting permission to leave? Yes, John. I want that equipment, Hammond said. That's equipment for the labs. We need it. Yes, Arnold said, but you didn't want to put money into a storm barrier to protect the pier. So we don't have a good harbor. If the storm gets worse, the ship will be pounded against the dock. I've seen ships lost that way. Then you've got all the other expenses, replacement of the vessel, plus salvage to clear your dock. And you can't use your dock until you do. Hammond gave a dismissing wave. Get them out of there. Permission to leave, Anby, Arnold said into the radio. See you in 2 weeks, the voice said. On the video monitor, they saw the crew on the decks, casting off the lines. Arnold turned back to the main console bank. He saw the land cruisers moving through the fields of steam. Where are they now? Hammond said. It looks like the south fields, Arnold said. The southern end of the island and more volcanic activity than the north. That means they should almost be to the Stegos. I'm sure they'll stop and see what Harding is doing. So we are going on to the Stegos, or the Stego paddock. As the Land Cruiser came to a stop, Ellie Sattler stared through the plumes of steam at the Stegosaurus. It was standing quietly, not moving. A jeep with a red stripe was parked alongside it. I have to admit, that's a funny-looking animal, Malcolm said. The Stegosaurus was 20 feet long, with a huge, bulky body and vertical armor plates along its back. The tail had dangerous-looking 3-foot spikes, but the neck tapered to an absurdly small head with a stupid gaze, like a very dumb horse. As they watched, a man walked around from behind the animal. "That's our vet, Dr. Harding," Regis said over the radio. "He's anesthetized the stego, which is why it's not moving. It's sick." Grant was already getting out of the car, hurrying toward the motionless stegosaur. Allie got out and looked back as the second Land Cruiser pulled up and the 2 kids jumped out. "What's he sick with?" Tim said. "They're not sure," Allie said. The great leathery plates along the stegosaur's spine drooped slightly. It breathed slowly, laboriously, making a wet sound with each breath. "Is it contagious?" Lex said. They walked toward the tiny head of the animal, where Grant and the vet were on their knees, peering into the stegosaur's mouth. Lex wrinkled her nose. "This thing sure is big," she said. "And smelly." "Yes, it is." Ellie had already noticed the stegosaur had a peculiar odor, like rotting fish. It reminded her of something she knew, but couldn't quite place. In any case, she had never smelled a stegosaur before. Maybe this was its characteristic odor, but she had her doubts. Most herbivores did not have a strong smell, nor did their droppings. It was reserved for the meat eaters to develop a real stink. "Is that because it's sick?" Lex asked. "Maybe, and don't forget the vets tranquilized it." "Ellie, have a look at this tongue," Grant said. The dark purple tongue drooped limply from the animal's mouth. The vet shone a light on it so she could see the very fine silvery blisters. "Microvesicles," Ellie said. "Interesting." "We've had a difficult time with these stegos," the vet said. "They're always getting sick." "What are the symptoms?" Ellie asked. She scratched the tongue with her fingernail. A clear liquid exuded from the broken blisters. "Ugh," Lex said. "Imbalance, disorientation, labored breathing, and massive diarrhea," Harding said. "Seems to happen about once every 6 weeks or so." Yeah, he was right. "Oh yes," Harding said. Animals of this size has to be taken. Animal of this size has to take in a minimum of 500 or 600 pounds of plant matter daily just to keep going. They're constant foragers." "Then it's not likely to be poisoning from a plant," Ellie said. "Constant browsers would be constantly sick if they were eating a toxic plant. Not every 6 weeks." "Exactly," the vet said. "May I?" Ellie asked. She took the flashlight from the vet. "You have pupillary effects from the tranquilizer," she said, shining the light in the stegosaur's eyes. "Yes, there's a meiotic effect. Pupils are constricted." "But these pupils are dilated," she said. Harding looked. There was no question. The stegosaur's pupil was dilated and did not contract when light shone on it. "I'll be damned," he said. "That's a pharmacological effect." "Yes." Ellie got back on her feet and looked around. "What's the animal's range?" "About 5 square miles. In this general area?" she asked. They were in an open meadow, with scattered rocky outcrops and intermittent plumes of steam rising from the ground. It was late afternoon, and the sky was pink beneath the lowering gray clouds. The range is mostly north and east of here, Harding said, but when they get sick, they're usually somewhere around this particular area. It was an interesting puzzle, she thought, how to explain the periodicity of the poisoning. She pointed across the field. You see those low, delicate-looking bushes? West Indian lilac, Harding nodded. We know it's toxic, but the animals don't eat it. Are you sure? Yes. We monitor them on video, and I've checked droppings just to be certain. The stegos never eat the lilac bushes. Melia aziderec, called Chinaberry or West Indian lilac, contained a number of toxic alkaloids. The Chinese used the plant as a fish poison. Fish poison? Why would you need a fish poison? They don't eat it, the vet said. Interesting, Ellie said. Because otherwise, I would have said that this animal shows all the classic signs of melia toxicity. Stupor, blistering of the mucous membranes, and pupillary dilation. She set off toward the field to examine the plants more closely. Her body bent over the ground. You're right, she said. Plants are healthy. No sign of being eaten. None at all. And there's the 6-week interval, the vet reminded her. The stegosaurs come here how often? About once a week, he said. Stegos make a slow loop through their home range territory, feeding as they go. They complete the loop in about a week. But they're only sick once every 6 weeks. Correct, Harding said. This is boring, Lex said. Shh, Tim said. Dr. Sattler's trying to think. Unsuccessfully, Ellie said, walking farther out into the field. Behind her, she heard Lex saying, Anybody want to play a little pickle? Little sporty girl. Ellie stared at the ground. The field was rocky in many places. She could hear the sound of the surf somewhere to the left. There were berries among the rocks. Perhaps the animals were just eating berries, but that didn't make sense. West Indian lilac berries were terribly bitter. Finding anything, Grant said, coming up to join her. Ellie sighed. Just rocks, she said. We must be near the beach, because all these rocks are smooth, and they're in funny little piles. Funny little piles, Grant said. All over. There's one pile right there, she pointed. As soon as she did, she realized what she was looking at. These rocks were heaped in small piles. Wait, the rocks were worn, but it had nothing to do with the ocean. These rocks were heaped in small piles, almost as if they had been thrown down that way. They were piles of gizzard stones. Many birds and crocodiles swallowed small stones, which collected in a muscular pouch in the digestive tract, called the gizzard. Squeezed by the muscles of the gizzard, the stones helped crush tough plant food before it reached the stomach, and thus aided digestion. Some scientists thought dinosaurs also had gizzard stones. For one thing, dinosaur teeth were too small and too little worn to have been used for chewing food. It was presumed that dinosaurs swallowed their food whole and let the gizzard stones break down the plant fibers, and some skeletons had been found with an associated pile of small stones in the abdominal area. but it had never been verified, and gizzard stones, Grant said. I think so. Yes. I like this idea of cutting off a thought with spoken word, as if, like, interrupting her thoughts. I like that. I like that. I think so, yes. They swallow these stones, and after a few weeks, the stones are worn smooth, so they regurgitate them, leaving this little pile, and swallow fresh stones. And when they do, they swallow berries as well and get sick. I'll be damned, Grant said. I'm sure you're right. He looked at the pile of stones, brushing through them with his hand, following the instinct of a paleontologist. Then he stopped. Ellie, he said. Take a look at this. Put it there, babe. Right in the old mitt, Lex cried, and Gennaro threw the ball to her. She threw it back so hard that his hand stung. Take it easy, I don't have a glove. You wimp, she said contemptuously. Annoyed, he fired the ball at her and heard it smack in the leather. Now that's more like it, she said. Standing by the dinosaur, Gennaro continued to play catch as he talked to Malcolm. How does this sick dinosaur fit into your theory? It's predicted, Malcolm said. Gennaro shook his head. Is anything not predicted by your theory? Look, Malcolm said. It's nothing to do with me. It's chaos theory. But I notice nobody is willing to listen to the consequences of the mathematics, because they imply very large consequences for human life, much larger than Heisenberg's principle or Gödel's theorem, which everybody rattles on about. Those are actually rather academic considerations, philosophical considerations. But chaos theory concerns everyday life. Do you know why computers were first built? No, Gennaro said. Burn it in there, Lex yelled. Banana. I am Raptor Jesus. Thank you for the follow. Welcome. Computers were built in the late 1940s because mathematicians like John von Neumann thought that if you had a computer, a machine to handle a lot of the variables simultaneously, you would be able to predict the weather. Weather would finally fall to human understanding. And men believed that dream for the next 40 years. They believed that prediction was just a function of keeping track of things. If you knew enough, you could predict anything. That's been a cherished scientific belief since Newton. And chaos theory throws it right out the window. It says that you can never predict certain phenomena at will. You can never predict the weather more than a few days away. All the money that has been spent on long-range forecasting, about $500 million in the last few decades, is money wasted. It's a fool's errand. Is as pointless as trying to turn lead into gold. We look back at the alchemists and laugh at what they were trying to do, but future generations will laugh at us the same way. We've tried the impossible and spent a lot of money doing it, because in fact, there are great categories of phenomena that are inherently unpredictable. Chaos says that. Yes, and it is astonishing how few people can care to hear it. Malcolm said, I gave all this information to Hammond long before he broke ground on this place. You're going to engineer a bunch of prehistoric animals and set them on an island. Fine. A lovely dream. Charming. But it won't go as planned. It is inherently unpredictable, just as the weather is. You told him this, Gennaro said. Yes. I also told him where the deviations would occur. Obviously, the fitness of the animals to the environment was one area. This stegosaur is 100 million years old. It isn't adapted to our world. The air is different. The solar radiation is different. The land is different. The insects are different. The sounds are different. The vegetation is different. Everything is different. The oxygen content is decreased. This poor animal is like a human being at 10,000 feet altitude. Listen to him wheezing. And the other areas. Broadly speaking, the ability of the park to control the spread of life forms, because the history of evolution is that life escapes all barriers, life breaks free, life expands to new territories, painfully, perhaps even dangerously, but life finds a way. Malcolm shook his head. I don't mean to be philosophical, but there it is. Gennaro looked over. Ellie and Grant were across the field, waving their arms and shouting. Did you get my Coke? Dennis Nedry asked as Muldoon came back into the control room. Muldoon didn't bother to answer. He went directly to the monitor and looked at what was happening. He went over the radio. He heard Harding's voice saying, "The stego finally handle on now." "What's that about?" Muldoon said. "They're down by the south point," Arnold said. "That's why they're breaking up a little. I'll switch them to another channel, but they found out what's wrong with the stegos, eating some kind of berry." Hammond nodded. "I knew we'd solve that sooner or later." "It's not very impressive," Gennaro said. He held the white fragment, no longer than a postage stamp, on his fingertip in the fading light. "You sure about this, Alan?" "Absolutely sure," Grant said. "What gives it away is the patterning on the interior surface, the interior curve. Turn it over and you'll notice a faint pattern of raised lines, making roughly triangular shapes." "Yes, I see them." "Well, I've dug out 2 eggs with patterns like that at my site in Montana." "You're saying this is a piece of dinosaur eggshell?" "Absolutely," Grant said. Harding shook his head. "These dinosaurs can't breed." "Evidently they can," Gennaro said. "That must be a bird egg," Harding said. "We have literally dozens of species on the island." Grant shook his head. "Look at the curvature. The shell is almost flat. That's from a very big egg. And notice the thickness of the shell. Unless you have ostriches on this island, it's a dinosaur egg." "But they can't possibly breed," Harding insisted. "All the animals are female." "All I know," Grant said, "is that this is a dinosaur egg." Malcolm said, "Can you tell the species?" "Yes," Grant said. "It's a velociraptor egg." Dun, dun, dun!
I have arrived.
Raptor Jesus, welcome in. How are you doing today? Glad you could join us. I'm assuming raptors are your favorite animal from your username. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. If you just want to lurk, that's completely okay. Raptor Jesus' name is from a video saw by Gaming Beaver like 10 years ago. I don't think I ever saw it. I'll have to look it up later. What's your favorite dinosaur? Do you have a favorite? My favorite is... Oh, Laurel, thank you so much for dropping in and hanging out for a while. Have a good time zone. My favorite dinosaur. They're so different from each other. But I like between the Brontosaurus and the Stegosaur, because they're just like big cows. I would like to ride a Brontosaur. The Dreadnoughtus. I think we're still not quite halfway through the book yet. We're almost there, though. We're getting there. I think by the time I finish stream, we should be halfway through the book. Alright, let's move on to the next chapter. Absolutely absurd, Hammond said in the control room, listening to the report over the radio. It must be a bird egg. That's all it can be. The radio crackled. He heard Malcolm's voice. Let's do a little test, shall we? Ask Mr. Arnold to run one of his computer tallies. Now? Yes. Right now. I understand you can transmit it to the screen in Dr. Harding's car. Do that too, will you? No problem, Arnold said. A moment later, the screen in the control room printed out. Tyrannosaurus, expected 2, found 2, versions 4.1. Myosaurus, expected 21, found 21, version 3.3. Stegosaurus, expected 4, found 4, version 3.9. Triceratops, expected 8, found 8, version 3.1. Procomsignathids, expected 49, found 49, version 3.9. Othniella, expected 16, found 16, version 3.1. Velociraptors, expected 8, found 8, version 3. 3.0. Apatosaurus, expected 17, found 17, version 3.1. Hadrosaurus, expected 11, found 11, version 3.1. Dilophosaurus, expected 7, found 7, version 4.3. Pterosaurs. Expected 6. Found 6. Version 4.3. Z Chris, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome in. Thank you for becoming one of my loyal new minions. Hypsilophodontids. Expected 33. Found 33. Version 2.9. Thank you so much for the head pads. Thank you. Euplocephalids. Expected 16. Found 16. Version 4.0. Styracosaurus. Expected 18. Found 18. Version 3.9. Microceratops. Expected 22. Found 22. Version 4.1. Total 200. Expected 238. Found 238. I hope you're satisfied, Hammond said. Are you receiving it down there on your screen? We see it, Malcolm said. Everything accounted for, as always. He couldn't keep the satisfaction out of his voice. Now then, Malcolm said, can you have the computer search for a different number of animals? Like what? Arnold said. Try 239. Just a minute, Arnold said, frowning. A moment later, the screen printed. Tyrannosaurus, expected 2, found 2. Myosaurus, expected 21, found 21. Stegosaurus, expected 4, found 4. Triceratops, expected 8, found 8. Percompsognathids, expected 49, found 50. Othniellia, expected 16, found 16. Velociraptors, expected 8, found 8. Apatosaurus, expected 17, found 17. Hadrosaurus, expected 11, found 11. Dilophosaurus, expected 7, found 7. Pterosaurs, expected 6, found 6. Hypsilophodontids, expected 33, found 33. Euplocephalids, found 16. Expected 16, found 16. Styracosaurus, expected 18, found 18. Microceratops, expected 22, found 22. Total, expected 238, found 239. Hammond sat forward. What the hell is that? We picked up another compy. From where? I don't know. The radio crackled. Now then. Can you ask the computer to search for, let's say, 300 animals? What is he talking about? Hammond said, his voice raising. 300 animals. What's he talking about? Just a minute, Arnold said. That'll take a few minutes. He punched buttons on the screen. The first line of the totals appeared. Total animals, 239. I don't understand what he's driving at. Hammond said. I'm afraid I do, Arnold said. He watched the screen. The numbers on the first line were clicking. Total animals, 244. 244, Hammond said. What's going on? The computer is counting the animals in the park, Wu said. All the animals. I thought that's what it always did, he spun. Nedry, have you screwed up again? No, Nedry said, looking up from his console. Computer allows the operator to enter an expected number of animals in order to make the counting process faster. But it's a convenience, not a flaw. He's right, Arnold said. We just always used the base count of 238 because we assumed there couldn't be more. Total animals, 262. Wait a minute, Hammond said. These animals can't breed. The computer must be counting field mice or something. I think so, Arnold said. It's almost certainly an error in the visual tracking, but we'll know soon enough. Hammond turned to Wu. They can't breed, can they? No, Wu said. Total animals, 270. Where are they coming from? Arnold said. Damned if I know, Wu said. They watched the numbers climb. Total animals, 283. Over the radio, they heard Gennaro say, Holy shit, how much more? And they heard the girl say, I'm getting hungry. When are we going home? She is just a child after all. Pretty soon, Lex. On the screen, there was a flashing error message. Error, search param. 300 animals not found. An error, Hammond said. Nodding. I thought so. I had the feeling all along there must be an error. But a moment later, the screen printed. Drink some water. Tyrannosaurus. Expected. 2. Found. 2. Myosaurus. Expected. 21. Found. 22. Stegosaurus. Expected. 4. Found. 4. Triceratops. Expected. 8. Found. 8. Procompsognathus. Expected. 49. Found. 65. Othnialia. Expected. 16. Found. 23. Velociraptors. Expected. 8. Found. 37. Apatosaurus. Expected. 17. Found. 17. Hadrosaurus. Expected. 11. Found. 11. Sluggy, thank you so much for the raid. Hello, everyone. My name is Syndra, the sinfully sweet Bakunawa. I welcome you all into my ocean abyss. Thank you, Usagi, for trusting me with this humble raid. I promise I'll take such good care of these wonderful little creatures you've left me. How was your stream? What were you doing? Let me give you a little shouty outy here. If I can do this one-handed. underscore key. There we go. Thank you so much. Pokemon and Minecraft Spooky Mod. Ooh, sounds like fun. Which version of Pokemon were you playing? Also, if you have to raid and run, I completely understand. 100% go take care of yourself. Get you some water, use the bathroom. Have a big stretch, you deserve it. Emerald, ew. Yummy. We are currently almost halfway through Jurassic Park, the novel by Michael Crichton. Every now and then I stop and every now and then I will stop and point out some differences that I've noticed, some glaring differences between the book and the movies. We have just hit a part in the story where they're going through the expected number of dinosaurs on the island and finding out that there are actually more dinosaurs on the island than they were expecting. However, of course, Hammond is just chalking it up to being a flaw in the system. So let's keep reading and find out what happens, shall we? Or, we all know what happens next, but not quite in such graphic detail as we're going to get soon enough. Now, where were we? Ah, yes. Velociraptors, expected, 8. Found, 37. Apatosaurus, expected, 17. Found, 17. Hadrosaurus, expected, 11. Found, 11. Dilophosaurus, expected, 7. Found, 7. Pterosaurus, expected, 6. Found, 6. Hypsilophodontids, expected, 33. Found, 34. Euplocephalids, expected, 16. Found, 16. Styracosaurus, expected, 18. Found, 18. Microceratops, expected, 22. Found, 22. Total, expected, 238. Found, 292. The radio crackled. Now you see the flaw in your procedures, Malcolm said. You only tracked the expected number of dinosaurs. You were worried about losing animals, and your procedures were designed to advise you instantly if you had less than the expected number. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was you had more than the expected number. Christ, Arnold said. There can't be more, Wu said. We know how many we've released. There can't be more than that. Afraid so, Henry, Malcolm said. They're breeding. No. Even if you don't accept Grant's eggshell, you can prove it with your own data. Take a look at the Compy height graph. Arnold will put it up for you. Notice anything about it, Malcolm said. It's a Poisson distribution, Wu said. Normal curve. But didn't you say you introduced the compies in 3 batches at 6-month intervals? Yes. Then you should get a graph with peaks for each of the 3 separate batches that were introduced, Malcolm said, tapping the keyboard. Like this. But you didn't get this graph, Malcolm said. The graph you actually got is a graph of a breeding population. Your compies are breeding. Wu shook his head. I don't see how. They're breeding, and so are the Othnialia, the Myosaurs, the Hypsies, and the Velociraptors. Christ, Muldoon said. There are raptors free in the park. Well, it's not that bad, Hammond said. Looking at the screen, we have increases in just 3 categories. Well, 5 categories. Very small increases in 2 of them. What are you talking about? Wu said loudly. Don't you know what this means? Of course I know what this means, Henry, Hammond said. It means you screwed up. Absolutely not. You've got breeding dinosaurs out there, Henry. But they're all female, Wu said. It's impossible. There must be a mistake. And look at the numbers. A small increase in the big animals, the Myosaurs and the Hypsies, and big increases in the number of small animals. It just doesn't make sense. It must be a mistake. The radio clicked. Actually not, Grant said. I think these numbers confirm that breeding is taking place in 7 different sites around the island. The sky was growing darker. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Grant and the others leaned in the doors of the jeep, staring at the screen on the dashboard. Breeding sites, Wu said over the radio. Nests, Grant said. Assuming the average clutch is 8 to 12 hatching eggs, these data would indicate the compies have 2 nests, the raptors have 2 nests, the Othies have 1 nest, and the Hypsies and the Mayas have 1 nest each. Where are these nests? We'll have to go find them, Grant said. Dinosaurs built their nests in secluded places. But why are there so few big animals? Wu said. If there is a Maya nest of 8 to 12 eggs, there should be 8 to 12 new Mayas, not just 1. That's right, Grant said. Except that the raptors and the compies that are loose in the park are probably eating the eggs of the bigger animals, and perhaps eating the newly hatched young as well. But we've never seen that, Arnold said over the radio. Raptors are nocturnal, he said. Is anyone watching the parks at night? There was a long silence. I didn't think so, Grant said. It still doesn't make sense, Wu said. You can't support 50 additional animals on a couple of nests of eggs. No, Grant said. I assume they're eating something else as well. Perhaps small rodents, mice and rats. There was another silence. Let me guess, Grant said. Are you good? You got fuzz on your face, baby. Thank you. Stop ripping up your bed for me. Let me guess, Grant said. When you first came to the island, You had a problem with rats, but as time passed, the problem faded away. Yes, that's true. And you never thought to investigate why? Well, we just assumed, Arnold said. Look, Wu said. The fact remains, all the animals are female. They can't breed. Grant had been thinking about that. He had recently learned of an intriguing West German study that he suspected held the answer. When you made your dinosaur DNA, Grant said, you were working with fragmentary pieces. Is that right? Yes, Wu said. In order to make a complete strand, were you ever required to include DNA fragments from other species? Occasionally, yes, Wu said. It's the only way to accomplish the job. Sometimes we include avian DNA from a variety of birds, and sometimes reptilian DNA. Any amphibian DNA, specifically frog DNA? Possibly. I'd have to check. Check, Grant said. I think you'll find that holds the answer. Malcolm said, frog DNA. Why frog DNA? Shinaru said impatiently, listen, this is all very intriguing, but we're forgetting the main question. Have any animals got off the island? Grant said, we can't tell from these data. Then how are we going to find out? There's only one way I know, Grant said. We'll have to find the individual dinosaur nests, inspect them, and count the remaining egg fragments. From that, we may be able to determine how many animals were originally hatched, and we can begin to assess whether there are any missing. Malcolm said, even so, you won't know if the missing animals are killed or dead from natural causes, or whether they have left the island. No, Grant said, but it's a start. And I think we can get more information from an intensive look at the population graphs. How are we going to find these nests? Actually, Grant said, I think the computer will be able to help us with that. Can we go back now, Lex said. I'm hungry. Yes, let's go, Grant said, smiling at her. You've been very patient. You'll be able to eat in about 20 minutes, Regis said, starting towards the 2 land cruisers. I'll stay for a while, Ellie said, and get photos of the stego with Dr. Harding's camera. Those vehicles in the mouth will have... those vesicles, not vehicles. I can't read. Those vesicles in the mouth will have cleared up by tomorrow. I want to get back, Grant said. I'll go with the kids. I will too, Malcolm said. I think I'll stay, Gennaro said, and go back with Harding in his jeep with Dr. Sattler. Fine, let's go. They started walking. Malcolm said, why exactly is our lawyer staying? Grant shrugged. I think it might have something to do with Dr. Sattler. Really? The Shorts, you think? It's happened before, Grant said. When they came to the land cruisers, Tim said, I want to ride in the front one this time, with Dr. Grant. Malcolm said, unfortunately, Dr. Grant and I need to talk. I'll just sit and listen. I won't say anything, Tim said. It's a private conversation, Malcolm said. I'll tell you what, Tim, Ed Regis said. Let them sit in the rear car by themselves. We'll sit in the front car, and you can use the night vision goggles. Have you ever used night vision goggles, Tim? They're goggles with very sensitive CCDs that allow you to see in the dark. Neat, he said, and moved toward the first car. Hey, Lex said, I want to use it too. No, Tim said. No fair, no fair. You get to do everything, Timmy. Ed Regis watched them go and said to Grant, "I can see what the ride back is going to be like." Grant and Malcolm climbed into the second car. A few raindrops spattered on the windshield. "Let's get going," Ed Regis said. "I'm about ready for dinner, and I could do with a nice banana daiquiri. What do you say, folks? Daiquiri sounds good." He pounded the metal panel of the car. "See you back at camp," he said, and he started running toward the first car and climbed aboard. A red light on the dashboard blinked with a soft electric whir, and the Land Cruiser started off. Driving back in the fading light, Malcolm seemed oddly subdued. Grant said, "You must feel vindicated about your theory." "As a matter of fact, I'm feeling a bit of dread. I suspect we're at a very dangerous point." "Why?" "Intuition." "Do mathematicians believe in intuition?" "Absolutely. Very important intuition. Actually, I was thinking of fractals," Malcolm said. "You know about fractals?" Grant shook his head. "Not really, no. Fractals are a kind of geometry associated with a man named Mandelbrot. Unlike ordinary Euclidean geometry that everybody learns in school, squares and cubes and spheres, fractal geometry appears to describe real objects in the natural world. Mountains and clouds are fractal shapes, so fractals are probably related to reality somehow. Well, Mandelbrot found a remarkable thing with his geometric tools. He found that things looked almost identical at different scales." "At different scales," Grant said. "For example," Malcolm said, "a big mountain, seen from far away, has a certain rugged mountain shape. If you get closer and examine a small peak of the big mountain, it will have the same mountain shape. In fact, you can go all the way down to the scale of a tiny speck of rock seen under a microscope. It will have the same basic fractal shape as the big mountain." "I don't really see why this is worrying you," Grant said. He yawned. He smelt the sulfur fumes of the volcanic steam. They were coming now to the section of road that ran near the coastline, overlooking the beach and the ocean. "It's a way of looking at things," Malcolm said. "Mandelbrot found a sameness from the smallest to the largest, and this sameness of scale also occurs for events." "Events?" "Consider cotton prices," Malcolm said. "There are good records of cotton prices going back more than 100 years. When you study fluctuations in cotton prices, you find that the graph of price fluctuations in the course of a day looks basically like the graph for a week, which looks basically like the graph for a year, or for 10 years. And that's how things are. A day is like a whole life. You start out doing one thing, but end up doing something else. Plan to run an errand, but never get there. And at the end of your life, your whole existence has that same haphazard quality too. Your whole life has the same shape as a single day." "I guess it's one way to look at things," Grant said. "No," Malcolm said. "It's the only way to look at things. At least, the only way that is true to reality. You see, the fractal idea of sameness carries within it an aspect of recursion, a kind of doubling back on itself, which means that events are unpredictable, that they can change suddenly and without warning." "Okay. But we have soothed ourselves into imagining sudden change as something that happens outside the normal order of things, an accident, like a car crash, or beyond our control, like a fatal illness. We do not conceive of sudden, radical, irrational change as built into the very fabric of existence. Yet it is. And chaos theory teaches us, Malcolm said, that straight linearity, which we have come to take for granted in everything from physics to fiction, simply does not exist. Linearity is an artificial way of viewing the world. Real life isn't a series of interconnected events occurring one after another like beads strung on a necklace. Life is actually a series of encounters in which one event may change those that follow in a wholly unpredictable, even devastating way. Malcolm sat back in his seat, looking toward the other Land Cruiser, a few yards ahead. That's a deep truth about the structure of our universe, but for some reason, we insist on behaving as if it were not true. At that moment, the cars jolted to a stop. "What happened?" Grant said. Up ahead, they saw the kids in the car, pointing toward the ocean. Offshore, beneath lowering clouds, Grant saw the dark outlines of the supply boat making its way back towards Punta Arenas. "Why have we stopped?" Malcolm said. Grant turned on the radio and heard the little girl saying excitedly, "Look there, Timmy! You see it! It's there!" Malcolm squinted at the boat. They talking about the boat? Apparently. Ed Regis climbed out of the front car and came running back to their window. "I'm sorry," he said, "but the kids are all worked up. Do you have binoculars here?" "For what?" "The little girl said she sees something on the boat. Some kind of animal," Regis said. Grant grabbed binoculars and rested his elbows on the window ledge of the Land Cruiser. He scanned the long shape of the supply ship. It was so dark, it was almost a silhouette. As he watched, the ship's running lights came on, brilliant in the dark purple twilight. "Do you see anything?" Regis said. "No," Grant said. "They're low down," Lex said over the radio. "Look down low." Grant tilted the binoculars down, scanning the hull just above the waterline. The supply ship was broad-beamed, with a splash flange that ran the length of the ship, but it was quite dark now, and he could hardly make out details. "No, nothing." "I can see them," Lex said impatiently. "Near the back. Look near the back." "How can she see anything in this light?" Malcolm said. "Kids can see," Grant said. "They've got a visual acuity we forgot we ever had." He swung the binoculars toward the stern, moving them slowly, and suddenly he saw the animals. They were playing, darting among the silhouetted stern structures. He could see them only briefly, but even in the fading light he could tell that they were upright animals, about 2 feet tall, standing with stiff balancing tails. "You see them now," Lex said. "I see them," he said. "What are they?" "They're raptors," Grant said. "At least 2, maybe more. Juveniles." "Jesus," Ed Regis said. "That boat's going to the mainland." Malcolm shrugged. "Don't get excited. Just call the control room and tell them to recall the boat." Ed Regis reached in and grabbed the radio from the dashboard. They heard hissing static and clicks as he rapidly changed channels. "There's something wrong with this one," he said. "It's not working." He ran off to the first Land Cruiser. They saw him duck into it. Then he looked back at them. There's something wrong with both radios, he said. I can't raise the control room. Then let's get going, Grant said. No, my bitrate, what happened? Why is it so low? What's going on? Is it raining? No. Why did my bitrate suddenly drop? That's not cool. That's not nice. It doesn't look like it's affecting my stream at all. I guess let's just keep on with it. There we go. Alright, OBS says everything is back to normal now. How strange. In the control room, Muldoon stood before the big windows that overlooked the park. At 7 o'clock, the quartz floodlights came on all over the island, turning the landscape into a glowing jewel stretching away to the south. This was his favorite moment of the day. He heard the crackle of static from the radios. The land cruisers have started again, Arnold said. They're on their way home. But why did they stop? Hammond said. And why can't we talk to them? I don't know, Arnold said. Maybe they turned off the radios in the car. Probably the storm, Muldoon said. Interference from the storm. They'll be here in 20 minutes, Hammond said. You better call down and make sure the dining room is ready for them. Those kids are going to be hungry. Arnold picked up the phone and heard a steady, monotonous hiss. What's this? What's going on? Jesus, hang that up, Nedry said. You'll screw up the data stream. You've taken all the phone lines, even the internal ones. I've taken all the lines that communicate outside, Nedry said, but your internal lines should still work. Arnold punched console buttons one after another. He heard nothing but hissing on all the lines. Looks like you've got 'em all. Sorry about that, Nedry said. I'll clear up a couple for you at the end of the next transmission, in about 15 minutes, he yawned. Looks like a long weekend for me. I guess I'll go get that Coke now. He picked up his shoulder bag and headed for the door. Don't touch my console, okay? The door closed. What a slob, Hammond said. Yeah, Arnold said, but I guess he knows what he's doing. Along the side of the road, clouds of volcanic steam misted rainbows in the bright quartz lights. Grant said into the radio, How long does it take the ship to reach the mainland? 18 hours, Ed Regis said. More or less. It's pretty reliable. He glanced at his watch. It should arrive around 11 tomorrow morning. Grant frowned. You still can't talk to the control room. Not so far. How about Harding? Can you reach him? No, I've tried. He may have his radio turned off. Malcolm was shaking his head. So we're the only ones who know about the animals on the ship. I'm trying to raise somebody, Ed Regis said. I mean, Christ, we don't want those animals on the mainland. How long until we get back to the base? From here, another 16, 17 minutes, Ed Regis said. At night, the whole road was illuminated by big floodlights. It felt to Grant as if they were driving through a bright green tunnel of leaves, Large raindrops splattered the windshield. Grant felt the land cruiser slow, then stop. Now what? Lex said. I don't want to stop. Why did we stop? And then, suddenly, all the floodlights went out. The road was plunged into darkness. Lex said, Hey! Probably just a power outage or something, Ed Regis said. I'm sure the lights will be on in a minute. What the hell? Arnold said, staring at his monitors. What happened? Muldoon said. You lose power. Yeah, but only power on the perimeter. Everything in this building's working fine, but outside in the park, the power is gone. Lights, TV cameras, everything. His remote video monitors had gone black. What about the 2 land cruisers? Stopped somewhere around the Tyrannosaur paddock. Well, Muldoon said, call maintenance and let's get the power back on. Arnold picked up one of his phones and heard hissing. Nedry's computers talking to each other. No phones. That damn Nedry. Nedry! Where the hell is he? Dennis Nedry pushed open the door marked fertilization. With the perimeter power out, all the security locks were disarmed. Every door in the building opened with a touch. The problems with the security system were high on Jurassic Park's bug list. Nedry wondered if anyone ever imagined that it wasn't a bug, that Nedry had programmed it that way. He had built in a classic trap door. Few programmers of large computer systems could resist the temptation to leave themselves a secret entrance. Partly, it was common sense. If inept users locked up the system, then they called you for help. And you always had a way to get in and repair the mess. And partly, it was a kind of signature Kilroy was here. And partly, it was insurance for the future. Nedry was annoyed with the Jurassic Park project. Late in the schedule, InGen had demanded extensive modifications to the system, but hadn't been willing to pay for them, arguing they should be included under the original contract. Lawsuits were threatened. Letters were written to Nedry's other clients, implying that Nedry was unreliable. It was blackmail, and in the end, Nedry had been forced to eat his overages in Jurassic Park, and to make the changes that Hammond wanted. But later, when he was approached by Lewis Dodson at Biosyn, Nedry was ready to listen, and able to say that he could indeed get past Jurassic Park security. He could get into any room, any system, anywhere on the park, just because he had programmed it that way, just in case. He entered the fertilization room. The lab was deserted. As he had anticipated, all the staff was at dinner. Nedry unzipped his shoulder bag and removed the can of Gillette shaving cream. He unscrewed the base and saw the interior was divided into a series of cylindrical slots. He pulled on a pair of heavy insulated gloves and opened the walk-in freezer marked Contents Viable Biological Maintain -10°C minimum. The freezer was the size of a small closet, with shelves from floor to ceiling. Most of the shelves contained reagents and liquids in plastic sacks. To one side, he saw a smaller nitrogen cold box with a heavy ceramic door. He opened it, and a rack of small tubes slid out, in a cloud of white liquid nitrogen smoke. The embryos were arranged by species: Stegosaurus, Apatosaurus, Hadrosaurus, Tyrannosaurus, each embryo in a thin glass container wrapped in silver foil, stoppered with polyolene. Nedry quickly took 2 of each, sipping them into the shaving cream can. Then he screwed the base of the can shut and twisted the top. There was a hiss of releasing gas inside, and the can frosted in his hand. Dodson had said there was enough coolant to last 36 hours, more than enough time to get back to San Jose. Nedry left the freezer, returned to the main lab. He dropped the can back in his bag, zipped it shut. He went back into the hallway. The theft had taken less than 2 minutes. He could imagine the consternation upstairs in the control room as they began to realize what happened. All the security codes were scrambled, and all their phone lines were jammed. Without his help, it would take hours to untangle the mess, but in just a few minutes, Nedry would be back in the control room setting things right, and no one would ever suspect what he had done. Grinning, Dennis Nedry walked down to the ground floor, nodded to the guard, and continued downstairs to the basement, passing the neat lines of electric Land Cruisers. He went to the gasoline-powered Jeep parked against the wall. He climbed into it, noticing some odd gray tubing on the passenger seat. It looked almost like a rocket launcher, he thought, as he turned the ignition key and started the Jeep. Nedry glanced at his watch. From there, into the park, and 3 minutes straight to the East Dock. 3 minutes. 3 minutes from there, back to the control room. Piece of cake. Damn it, Arnold said, punching buttons on the console. It's all screwed up. Muldoon was standing at the window, looking out at the park. The lights had gone out all over the island, except in the immediate area around the main building. He saw a few staff personnel hurrying to get out of the rain, but no one seemed to realize anything was wrong. Muldoon looked over at the visitor lodge, where the lights burned brightly. "Uh-oh," Arnold said. "We have real trouble." "What's that?" Muldoon said. He turned away from the window, and so he didn't see the Jeep drive out of the underground garage and head east along the maintenance road into the park. "That idiot Nedry turned off the security systems," Arnold said. "The whole building's opened up. None of the doors are locked anymore." "I'll notify the guards," Muldoon said. "That's the least of it," Arnold said. "When you turn off the security, you turn off all the peripheral fences as well." "The fences," Muldoon said. "The electric fences," Arnold said. "They're off, all over the island." "You mean?" "That's right," Arnold said. "The animals can get out now." Arnold lit a cigarette. "Probably nothing will happen, but you never know." Muldoon started toward the door. "I better drive out and bring in the people in those 2 Land Cruisers," he said, "just in case." Muldoon quickly went downstairs to the garage. He wasn't really worried about the fences going down. Most of the dinosaurs had been in their paddocks from 9 months or more, and they had brushed up against the fences more than once, with notable results. Muldoon knew how quickly animals learned to avoid shock stimuli. You could train a laboratory pigeon with just 2 or 3 stimulation events, so it was unlikely the dinosaurs would now approach the fences. Muldoon was more concerned about what the people in the cars would do. He didn't want them getting out of the Land Cruisers, because once the power came back on, the cars would start moving again, whether the people were inside them or not. They might be left behind. Of course, in the rain it was unlikely they would leave the cars, but still, you never knew. He reached the garage and hurried toward the Jeep. It was lucky, he thought, that he had had the foresight to put the launcher in it. He could start right out and be out there, and it was gone. What the hell? Muldoon stared at the empty parking space, astonished. The Jeep was gone. What the hell was happening? I love this book so much. And I think we're officially halfway through. We are officially halfway through the book. Yay! Since that was the end of that chapter, we haven't taken a break in a while, so let's everybody take a nice big stretch. Crack your back. Drink some water. Perfectly quenching. Delicious. Lubricating. Moist. Water. We love it. And let's have another nice big stretch. Yep. Loosen up those shoulders. Stewed 96, hello, welcome in. We have just gotten halfway through Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. Just taking a little stretchy break, a little water break. A little cat huffing break. If you have a pet near you, take a big sniff out of that little guy or gal. Crack my back like a Rice Krispie before we get back into the novel. Alright, let us continue. The power has just gone out. Dennis Nedry has stolen dinosaur embryos, taken a gas-powered jeep, and has made his way into the park in the middle of the storm. Grizz, thank you so much for the lurk. We appreciate you, sweetie. Rain drummed loudly on the roof of the Land Cruiser. Tim felt the night vision goggles pressing heavily on his forehead. He reached for the knob near his ear and adjusted the intensity. There was a brief phosphorescent flare, and then, in shades of electronic green and black, he could see the Land Cruiser behind with Dr. Grant and Dr. Malcolm inside. Neat. Dr. Grant was staring out the front windshield toward him. Tim saw him pick up the radio from the dash. There was a burst of static, and then he heard Dr. Grant's voice. "Can you see us back here?" Tim picked up the radio from Ed Regis. "I see you. Everything all right?" We're fine, Dr. Grant. Stay in the car. We will, don't worry. He clicked the radio off. Ed Regis snorted. It's pouring down rain. Of course we'll stay in the car, he muttered. Tim turned to look at the foliage and the side of the road. Through the goggles, the foliage was bright electronic green, and beyond, he could see sections of the green grid pattern of the fence. The Land Cruisers were stopped on the downslope of a hill, which must mean they were someplace near the Tyrannosaur area. It would be amazing to see the Tyrannosaur with those night vision goggles. A real thrill. Maybe the Tyrannosaur would come to the fence and look over at them. Tim wondered if its eyes would glow in the dark when he saw them. That would be neat. But he didn't see anything, and eventually he stopped looking. Everyone in the cars fell silent. The rain thrummed on the roof of the cars. The sheets of water streamed down over the sides of the windows. It was hard for Tim to see out, even with the goggles. How long have we been sitting here? Malcolm asked. I don't know. 4 or 5 minutes. I wonder what the problem is. Maybe a short circuit from the rain. But it happened before the rain really started. There was another silence. In a tense voice, Lex said, "But there's no lightning, right?" She'd always been afraid of lightning, and she now sat nervously, squeezing her leather mitt in her hands. Dr. Grant said, "What was that? We didn't quite get that." "Just my sister talking." "Oh." Tim again scanned the foliage, but saw nothing. Certainly nothing as big as a tyrannosaur. He began to wonder if the tyrannosaurs came out at night. Were they nocturnal animals? Tim wasn't sure if he had ever read that. He had the feeling that tyrannosaurs were all-weather, day or night animals. The time of day didn't matter to a tyrannosaur. The rain continued to pour. "Hell of a rain," Ed Regis said. "It's really coming down," Lex said. "I'm hungry." "I know that, Lex," Regis said. "But we're stuck here, sweetie. The cars run on electricity and buried cables in the road." "Stuck for how long?" "Until they fix the electricity." Listening to the sound of the rain, Tim felt himself growing sleepy. He yawned and turned to look at the palm trees in the left side of the road, and was startled by a sudden thump as the ground shook. He swung back just in time to catch a glimpse of a dark shape as it swiftly crossed the road between the two cars. Jesus, what was it? It was huge. It was big as the car. "Tim, are you there?" He picked up the radio. "Yes, I'm here." "Did you see it, Tim?" "No," Tim said. "I missed it." "What the hell was it?" Malcolm said. "Are you wearing the night vision goggles, Tim?" "Yes, I'll watch," Tim said. "Was it the Tyrannosaur?" Ed Regis asked. "I don't think so. It was in the road." "But you didn't see it," Ed Regis said. "No." Tim felt bad that he had missed seeing the animal, whatever it was. There was a sudden white crack of lightning, and his night goggles flared bright green. He blinked his eyes and started counting. 1,000, 2, 1,000. The thunder crashed, deafeningly loud and very close. Lex began to cry. "Oh no." Take it easy, honey, Edwidge said. It's just lightning. Tim scanned the side of the road. The rain was coming down very hard now, shaking the leaves with hammering drops. It made everything move. Everything seemed alive. He scanned the leaves. He stopped. There was something beyond the leaves. Tim looked up, higher. Behind the foliage, beyond the fence, he saw a thick body with a pebbled, grainy surface like the bark of a tree. But it wasn't a tree. He continued to look higher, sweeping the goggles upward. He saw the huge head of the Tyrannosaurus, just standing there, looking over the fence at the two land cruisers. The lightning flashed again, and the big animal rolled its head and bellowed in the glaring light. Then darkness and silence again, and the pounding rain. Tim. Yes, Dr. Grant. Do you see what it is? Yes, Dr. Grant. Tim had the sense that Dr. Grant was trying to talk in a way that wouldn't upset his sister. What's going on right now? Nothing, Tim said. Just watching the Tyrannosaur through his goggles. Just standing on the other side of the fence. I can't see much from here, Tim. It's fine, Dr. Grant. It's just standing there. Okay. Lex continued to cry, snuffling. There was another pause. Tim watched the Tyrannosaur. The head was huge. The animal looked from one vehicle to another, then back again. It seemed to stare right at Tim. In the goggles, the eyes glowed bright green. Tim felt a chill, but then, as he looked down at the animal's body, moving down from a massive head and jaws, he saw the smaller, muscular forelimb. It waved in the air, and then it gripped the fence. Jesus Christ, Edwidge said, staring out the window. The greatest predator the world has ever known. The most fearsome attack in human history. Somewhere in the back of his publicist's brain, Edwidge was still writing copy, but he could feel his knees begin to shake uncontrollably, his trousers flapping like flags. Jesus, he was frightened. He didn't want to be here, alone, among all the people in the two cars. Edwidge knew what a dinosaur attack was like. He knew what happened to people. He had seen the mangled bodies that resulted from a raptor attack. He could picture in his mind. And this was a Rex. Much, much bigger. The greatest meat eater that ever walked the earth. Jesus. When the Tyrannosaur roared, it was terrifying. A scream from some other world. Edwidge felt the spreading warmth in his trousers. He'd peed his pants. He was simultaneously embarrassed and terrified. But he knew he had to do something. He couldn't just stay there. He had to do something. Something. His hands were shaking, trembling against the dash. Jesus Christ, he said again. Bad language, Lex said, wagging her finger at him. Tim heard the sound of a door opening, and he swung his head away from the Tyrannosaur. The night vision goggles streaked laterally in time to see Edwidge stepping out through the open door, ducking his head in the rain. Hey, Lex said, where are you going? Ed Regis just turned and ran in the opposite direction from the Tyrannosaur, disappearing into the woods. The door to the Land Cruiser hung open. The paneling was getting wet. "He left," Lex said. "Where did he go? He left us alone." "Shut the door," Tim said. But she had started to scream. "He left us! He left us!" "Tim, what's going on?" It was Dr. Grant on the radio. "Tim." Tim leaned forward and tried to shut the door. From the back seat, he couldn't reach the handle. He looked back at the Tyrannosaur as lightning flashed again, momentarily silhouetting the huge black shape against the white, flaring sky. "Tim, what's happening?" "He left us. He left us." Tim blinked to recover his vision. When he looked again, the Tyrannosaur was standing there, exactly as before, motionless and huge. Rain dripped from its jaws. The forelimb gripped the fence. And then Tim realized the Tyrannosaur was holding on to the fence. The fence wasn't electrified anymore. "Lex, close the door." The radio crackled. "Tim." "I'm here, Dr. Grant. What's going on?" "Regis ran away," Tim said. "He what?" "He ran away. I think he saw that the fence isn't electrified," Tim said. "The fence isn't electrified," Malcolm said over the radio. "Did he say the fence isn't electrified?" "Lex," Tim said, "close the door." But Lex was screaming, "He left us! He left us!" in a steady, monotonous wail. And there was nothing for Tim to do but climb out of the back door into the slashing rain and shut the door for her. Thunder rumbled, and the lightning flashed again. Tim looked up and saw the Tyrannosaur crashing down the cyclone fence with a giant hind limb. "Timmy!" He jumped back in and slammed the door, the sound lost in the thunderclap. The radio. "Tim, are you there?" He grabbed the radio. "I'm here." He turned to Lex. "Lock the doors, get in the middle of the car, and shut up." Outside, the Tyrannosaur rolled its head and took an awkward step forward. The claws of its feet had caught in the grid of the flattened fence. Lex saw the animal finally and became silent. Still, she watched with wide eyes. Radio crackle. "Tim." "Yes, Dr. Grant." "Stay in the car. Stay down. Be quiet. Don't move. And don't make noise. Okay. You should be all right. I don't think it can open the car." "Okay. Just stay quiet so you don't arouse his attention any more than necessary." "Okay." Tim clicked the radio off. "You hear that, Lex?" His sister nodded. Silently. She never took her eyes off the dinosaur. The Tyrannosaur roared. In the glare of the lightning, they saw it pull free of the fence and take a bounding step forward. Now it was standing between the two cars. Tim couldn't see Dr. Grant's car anymore because the huge body blocked his view. The rain ran in rivulets down the pebbled skin of the muscular hind legs. He couldn't see the animal's head, which was high above the roofline. The Tyrannosaur moved around the side of the car. It went to the very spot where Tim had gotten out of the car. where Ed Regis had gotten out of the car. The animal paused there. The big head ducked down toward the mud. Tim looked back at Dr. Grant and Dr. Malcolm in the rear car. Their faces were tense as they stared forward through the windshield. The huge head raised back up, jaws open, and then stopped by the side windows in the glare of the lightning. They saw the beady, expressionless reptile eye moving in the socket. It was looking in the car. His sister's breath came in ragged, frightened gasps. He reached out and squeezed her arm, hoping she would stay quiet. The dinosaur continued to stare for a long time through the side window. Perhaps the dinosaur couldn't really see them, he thought. Finally, the head lifted up, out of view again. "Timmy," Lex whispered. "It's okay," Tim whispered. "I don't think it saw us." He was looking back toward Dr. Grant when a jolting impact rocked the Land Cruiser and shattered the windshield in a spider web as the Tyrannosaur's head crashed against the hood of the Land Cruiser. Tim was knocked flat on the seat. The night vision goggles slid off his forehead. He got back up quickly, blinking in the darkness, his mouth warm with blood. "Lex!" He couldn't see his sister anywhere. The Tyrannosaur stood near the front of the Land Cruiser, its chest moving as it breathed, the forelimbs making clawing movements in the air. "Lex!" Tim whispered. Then he heard her groan. She was lying somewhere on the floor under the front seat. Then a huge head came down, entirely blocking that shattered windshield. The dinosaur banged again on the front hood of the Land Cruiser. Tim grabbed the seat as the car rocked on its wheels. The Tyrannosaur banged down twice more, denting the metal. Then it moved around the side of the car. The big raised tail blocked his view out of all the side windows. At the back, the animal snorted, a deep, rumbling growl that blended with the thunder. It sank its jaws into the spare tire mounted on the back of the Land Cruiser, and in a single head shake, tore it away. The rear of the car lifted into the air for a moment. Then it thumped down with a muddy splash. "Tim," Dr. Grant said. "Tim, are you there?" Tim grabbed the radio. "We're okay," he said. There was a shrill, metallic scrape as claws raked the roof of the car. Tim's heart was pounding in his chest. He couldn't see anything out of the windows on the right side except pebbled, leathery flesh. The Tyrannosaur was leaning against the car, which rocked back and forth with each breath, the springs and metal creaking loudly. Lex groaned again. Tim put down the radio and started to crawl into the front seat. The Tyrannosaur roared, and the metal roof dented downward. Tim felt a sharp pain in his head and tumbled to the floor, onto the transmission hump. He found himself lying alongside Lex, and he was shocked to see that the whole side of her head was covered in blood. She looked unconscious. There was another jolting impact, and pieces of glass fell all around him. Tim felt rain. He looked up and saw that the front windshield had broken out. There was just a jagged rim of glass and, beyond, the big head of the dinosaur, looking down at him. Tim felt a sudden chill, and then the head rushed forward toward him, the jaws open. There was the squeal of metal against teeth, and he felt the hot, stinking breath of the animal, and a thick tongue stuck into the car through the windshield opening. The tongue slapped wetly around inside the car. He felt the hot lather of dinosaur saliva, and the tyrannosaur roared, a deafening sound inside the car. The head pulled away sharply. Tim scrambled up, avoiding the dent in the roof. There was still room to sit in the front seat by the passenger door. The tyrannosaur stood in the rain near the front fender. It seemed confused by what had happened to it. Blood dripped freely from its jaws. The tyrannosaur looked at Tim, cocking its head to stare with one big eye. The head moved close to the car, sideways, and peered in. Blood splattered on the dented hood of the Land Cruiser, mixing with the rain. It can't get to me, Tim thought. It's too big. Then the head pulled away, and in the flare of the lightning, he saw the hind leg lift up, and the world tilted crazily as the Land Cruiser slammed over on its side, the windows splatting in the mud. He saw Lex fall helplessly against the side window, and he fell down beside her, banging his head. Tim felt dizzy. Then the Tyrannosaur's jaws clamped onto the window frame, and the whole Land Cruiser was lifted up into the air and shaken. "Timmy!" Lex shrieked, so near to his ear that it hurt. She was suddenly awake, and he grabbed her as the Tyrannosaur crashed the car down again. Tim felt a stabbing pain in his side, and his sister fell on top of him. The car went up again, tilting crazily. Lex shouted, "Timmy!" And he saw the door give way beneath her, and she fell out of the car into the mud. But Tim couldn't answer, because in the next instant, everything swung crazily. He saw the trunks of the palm trees sliding downward past him, moving sideways through the air. He glimpsed the ground very far below, the hot roar of the Tyrannosaur, the blazing eye, the tops of the palm trees. And then, with a metallic scraping shriek, the car fell from the Tyrannosaur's jaws, a sickening fall, and Tim's stomach heaved in the moment before the world became totally black and silent. In the other car, Malcolm gasped, "Jesus, what happened to the other car?" Grant blinked his eyes as the lightning faded. The other car was gone. Grant couldn't believe it. He peered forward, trying to see through the rain-streaked windshield. The dinosaur's body was so large, it was probably just blocking. No! In another flash of lightning, he saw clearly. The car was gone. "What happened?" Malcolm said. "I don't know." Faintly over the rain, Grant heard the sound of the little girl screaming. The dinosaur was standing in darkness on the road up ahead, but they could see well enough to know that it was bending over now, sniffing the ground, or eating something on the ground. "Can you see?" Malcolm said, squinting. "Not much, no," Grant said. The rain pounded on the roof of the car. He listened for the little girl, but he didn't hear her anymore. The two men sat in the car listening. Was it the girl? Malcolm said, finally. It sounded like the girl. It did, yes. Was it? I don't know, Grant said. He felt a seeping fatigue overtake him, blurred through the rainy windshield. The dinosaur was coming toward their car, slow, ominous strides coming toward Jim. Malcolm said, "You know, at times like this, one feels, well, perhaps extinct animals should be left extinct. Don't you have that feeling now?" "Yes," Grant said. He was feeling his heart pounding. Do you, have any suggestions about what we do now?" "I can't think of a thing," Grant said. Malcolm twisted the handle, kicked open the door, and ran. But even as he did, Grant could see he was too late. The tyrannosaur too close. There was another crack of lightning. And in that instant of glaring white light, Grant watched in horror as the tyrannosaur roared and leapt forward. Grant was not clear about exactly what happened next. Malcolm was running, his feet splashing in the mud. The tyrannosaur bounded alongside him and ducked its massive head, and Malcolm was tossed into the air like a small doll. By then, Grant was out of the car too, feeling the cold rain slashing his face and body. The tyrannosaur had turned its back to him, the huge tail swinging through the air. Grant was tensing to run for the woods when suddenly the tyrannosaur spun back to face him and roared. Grant froze. He was standing beside the passenger door of the Land Cruiser, drenched in rain. He was completely exposed, the tyrannosaur no more than 8 feet away. The big animal roared again. At so close a range, the sound was terrifyingly loud. Grant felt himself shaking with cold and fright. He pressed his trembling hands against the metal of the door panel to steady them. The tyrannosaur roared once more, but it did not attack. It cocked its head and looked with first one eye, then the other, at the Land Cruiser, and it did nothing. It just stood there. What was going on? The powerful jaws opened and closed. The tyrannosaur bellowed angrily, and then the big hind leg came up and crashed down on the roof of the car. The claws slid off with a metal screech, barely missing Grant as he stood there, still unmoving. The foot splashed in the mud, the head tucked down in a slow arc, and the animal inspected the car, snorting. It peered into the front windshield. Then, moving toward the rear, it banged the passenger's doors shut and moved right toward Grant as he stood there. Grant was dizzy with fear, his heart pounding inside his chest. With the animal so close, he could smell the rotten flesh in the mouth, the sweetish blood smell, the sickening stench of the carnivore. He tensed his body, awaiting the inevitable. The big head slid past him, toward the rear of the car. Grant blinked. What happened? Was it possible the tyrannosaur hadn't seen him? It seemed as if it hadn't, but how could that be? Grant looked back to see the animal sniffing the rear-mounted tire. It nudged the tire with its snout, and then the head swung back. Again, it approached Grant. This time, the animal stopped, the black, flaring nostrils just inches away. Grant felt the animal's startling hot breath on his face, but the tyrannosaur wasn't sniffing like a dog. It was just breathing. And if anything, it seemed puzzled. No, the tyrannosaur couldn't see him. Not if he stood motionless. And in a detached academic corner of his mind, he found an explanation for that, a reason why. The jaws opened before him, the massive head raised up. Grant squeezed his fists together and bit his lips, trying desperately to remain motionless, to make no sound. The tyrannosaur bellowed in the night air. But by now, Grant was beginning to understand. The animal couldn't see him, but it suspected he was there, somewhere, and was trying, with its bellowing, to frighten Grant into some revealing movement. So long as he stood his ground, Grant realized he was invisible. In a final gesture of frustration, the big hind leg lifted up and kicked the Land Cruiser over, and Grant felt searing pain and the surprising sensation of his own body flying through the air. It seemed to be happening very slowly, and he had plenty of time to feel the world turn colder and watch the ground rush up to strike him in the face. Okay, I think we're either in the middle of the book or slightly after. That was a really nice read. I really enjoyed that scene. Shame what happened to the little girl. I think Tim... I don't know. Would he have died? Tim... It didn't say anything about Tim dying outright. It did infer that the girl was eaten. I'm not quite sure about the boy. He could be dead or alive. Let's go here. I need to stretch again. Alright, I think we made a good bit of progress into the book for today. So, here's what I'm going to do. Should I stick with ASMR? somewhere else. You know what, let's raid one of our friends that I haven't raided before. Which means I'm going to send you guys over to who? Mm, why don't I send you guys over to Davi? She's playing Escape the Backrooms. I think we should stick with our little horror theme that we have going on. So, everybody who is still here, thank you guys so much for coming through and hanging out with me today, having our little chat at the beginning of the stream, and staying and listening to me read. I take Sundays are my break days, those are my rest days, my planning days. I will have a schedule posted tomorrow in my Discord server. Boop, 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 let me... Oops. I will have my schedule posted in my Discord server tomorrow. You can join through the link right there. I also hang out in my Discord VC quite a bit, so if that is something that you appreciate out of your streamer, you are free to join in there and hang out with me sometimes. I'm currently playing Lost Ark off stream, so if we have any MMO players, I'm on NA East Lutera. I think I just made my my 4th or 5th character on Lost Ark, so I don't know if it's still I don't know if anyone really plays that anymore, but I have started getting back into that again as you know, my free MMO option. Alright, so let me go ahead, undo, get that raid started. Okay. Thank you for the new follows, the bits, the raids. Once again, I appreciate you all so much. You're such wonderful little creatures to hang out with me this evening. I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.